best light for portraits isn't a ring light or a studio strobe or anything you have to buy. In fact, it's already in your house. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to find the best light in your house and use it. No extra gear required and no studio needed. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Karen. I taught myself photography and I built a 13-year portrait business. And I'm here to help you learn photography and make it way less complicated than most others make it. And if you want a quick reference for 5 different lighting setups, including window light, grab my free easy lighting guide. It's linked below. But first, let me tell you what most beginners do when they're shooting indoors and why it's making their photos look worse. Many beginners walk into a room and want to turn every light on in the house because they think, hey, I need to light this space, so we might as well turn all the lights on because they're here. Even though we can't usually see it with our eyes, all the different light sources are giving off different color temperatures in our photos. And each color light is represented by a different number on the Kelvin scale, which determines how cool or warm the light will be. So the problem is, our cameras get really confused by all the different colors of light coming into it, and it doesn't know how to read that because it's conflicted. And if we set our cameras to auto white balance, it's still confused because it's getting all these different colors from different sources. And this results in really strange skin tones most of the time. Sometimes they'll be orange or greenish or pink, and none of them look natural. So the solution here is to pick one light source because then your camera's not confused about the color temperature and you can pick the correct white balance for that light source. But mixing light sources ends up with mixed results. I once shot a family with 19 people in it, and we had to do it in their living room because grandma wasn't able to get up, so she was on the couch. So we positioned everybody around grandma and all of that worked fine. But when I looked in the room, I looked around for the lighting source and there were a couple small table lamps on either side of the couch and they weren't much help. And there was a big window behind them, but the blinds were closed and it was nighttime. So there was no good light coming from that source. I happened to be using my on-camera flash and I had a big diffuser that went on the end like a big bulb, and I aimed it straight at everybody. Unfortunately, it made everybody look like they came out of a Renaissance painting, and all the light was flat and it was not very flattering. There were shadows behind people, and while you might not be able to tell that it looks bad just by taking a quick glance, I know that there was a better way to go about this. Had I known at the time, I would have taken my flash and bounced it behind me on the ceiling and the wall to create a warm, even glow across the whole room. This would have eliminated shadows on people's faces and behind them, as well as not making everybody look like they're a deer in the headlights. But sometimes you just do what you have to do when you don't know any better. So they ended up getting memories with their grandmother, and I ended up getting a very important lesson that day. Window light is a beautiful source of lighting for portraits especially. When you have indirect sunlight coming through a window, it wraps the face in a certain way with light that it's really hard to duplicate with artificial lighting. And natural window light is really consistent, so cameras love it and your white balance loves it. So what about ring lights? Have you ever tried to use those for portraits? While a lot of people love using ring lights for portraits, they tend to make everything really flat and washed out. They're great for creating content or lighting up a space that you need everything lit evenly, but they don't allow contouring on the face to create depth and dimension. It all just looks like one well-lit flat surface. And if you look closely, you can see the catch lights in people's eyes when you're taking portraits with them. And it often results in looking like you're in a sci-fi movie. Those are not the style of portraits that most people want. And let's talk about lamps. Lamps can be really good for lighting a subject and making it look more natural, or coming from a nice angle and having more soft, even lighting. But there's a lot of different things about lamps that can make the results a little bit wonky. For example, many lamps have shades over them and they create funny shadows if coming onto a person's face or body. It also matters where the light is positioned and how strong the light is coming from the lamp. If a lamp is right next to somebody's head, it might cast a certain shadow on their face just depending on how high or low it is. So the angles get a little bit tricky when using them. Oftentimes window light is just going to have a much more natural look versus having an artificial light on your subject's face. So how do we find the light in the house that we can use for beautiful portraits? Let's think first about which direction all the windows are facing. Since the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, we really want to find a window that is east facing for the most part. And we want to see what that light looks like about 9 or 10 in the morning, because as the sun is rising, about 9 or 10 in the morning, it's at this angle. So we want that 45-degree angle light coming in the window because it's indirect. At sunrise, we're going to have light coming straight through that window, and it's going to create a very harsh shadow on your subject's face. And if it's straight overhead at noon, you're not going to get those beautiful 45-degree angled rays coming through your window. And if you have a window that you want to use, but you can't avoid that harsh light coming straight through the window, just cover that window with a sheer curtain or something that's going to diffuse the light but still let that come in. And I also want to mention here, if you are covering a window with a sheer curtain, make sure that it's white, because you don't want a red or green or blue curtain casting colors onto your subject's face. Color cast is real and it is not fun to remove in Photoshop, but I do have a video about it if you want to watch it. Okay, so let's talk about how close to put your subject to that window. If we have our light coming in at a beautiful 45-degree angle and maybe we've diffused the light with a curtain or something like that, we want to be able to get our subject about a foot or two from that window. And it might feel a little bit uncomfortably close, but that's going to be the best way to light your subject's face and make it look really beautiful and natural. If we're too close to the window, oftentimes it's a little too bright. And if we're too far from the window, our subject isn't getting lit enough. And this is the important part. Make sure you're turning off every other light in the room so you only use your window light. That way your camera is not confused about the light source and the color is going to be a lot more natural. So let's talk about where to position your subject near that window and how all of this changes the shadows and the way the light falls onto your subject's face. If you have the window next to the subject and you are there shooting the subject who's facing you, the subject is basically 90 degrees from the window. Oftentimes, this is not going to result in a good look because half their face is going to be lit and the other half might be dark if the rest of the room is pretty dark. So they'll often end up with shadows split right down the middle of their face, and that's not very flattering unless you're specifically going for that look. So we often want to position our subject 45 degrees to that window. So you're not directly facing the window, but you're not directly facing 90 degrees away from the window. A 45-degree angle is going to give a nice directional light on your subject's face and contour everything in the right places and make them look like a real 3D person instead of just creating flat lighting like a ring light would give or some other artificial source. Also worth noting here that if your window is here and your subject's back is to the window, there's a few different things that can happen. If you're shooting them from the dark side of the room and their back is to the window, you'll often get a lot of shadows on the person's face if the room isn't very well lit, and you're going to have backlighting going on. So you're often going to get a silhouette because the person's face is dark and the back is really bright. Now, of course, you can up your camera settings to increase the exposure in the room, but if you're doing that to light your subject's face, the background is going to be super bright and washed out at that point. And sometimes that totally works. It just depends on what you're going for. But if you're wanting to take a soft, beautiful portrait, 45 degrees is usually going to be a great angle for that. Here's the thing about window light in your house. For me specifically, I live in a really small house. It's like 1,000 square feet and we have 5 people, so it's really tiny. And back when I started shooting, I wanted to shoot newborn portraits, starting with my daughter. And since we didn't have really great windows, a lot of our windows were either in a room that was very cluttered with toys everywhere or beds or something in front of that window, or we just didn't have a lot of light coming in most times of the day. I really wanted to make this work, so I opened up the front door and we have a glass storm door, and I took a big chair and I pushed it really close to that door. I laid a nice blanket over the chair and I put my daughter right in the middle of it. I was able to get some really nice images, and I even shot an image of the surrounding area where my other daughter was on the floor. She was trying to stay out of view, and it was really funny because you can see the whole situation is like just this tiny cramped area, but I wanted to make it work and I did. And don't think all of my photos didn't have little things in the corner that I had to edit out later. The shots were really tight and I didn't have a lot of space to move around, so I did as best as I could and I edited out little things when I was in Photoshop later. So as I started shooting newborn portraits for clients, I would ask them if they either wanted to come to my house or if I could go to their house. And the only requirement that I had was that there was a window that we could use that was east facing, and I'd have them check the lighting coming through that window when it was about 9 or 10 in the morning. They could send me pictures and I could tell if we had enough light that would be coming in to make it work. All I needed was about 3 square feet around that window and everything else could be moved out of the way. So it didn't take much to be able to create the images that I wanted and make them look really good. And even when I had clients come to my house, the only place I was comfortable putting them near any decent window light was in my child's bedroom. So I literally would move all the toys out of the way and all the kids' stuff so that I could make this work. And I would have the mom just sit on the bed right by the window. And I'd have her hold her baby, and I'd get so many beautiful angles of that light coming in. Sometimes I would do the dramatic lighting where there were split down the middle and there were shadows on one side of the face. And I just tried all sorts of different things. I could position the baby in different places when I was taking portraits all by itself. And I was able to feel my way through the creativity process of trying to figure out good lighting in my own small, cramped house with not so great windows. So my point here is it really doesn't matter what kind of space you have, or you don't need to have some big, beautiful house with amazing windows to be able to shoot good portraits with natural light. Newborn portraits are some of my favorite work I've ever shot because all the expressions I could get out of the baby, or the little outfits and wraps, all the things that make newborn portraits what they are. I love all of that. And the reason I love it is because of the natural lighting. So that is it. Find the best window in your house, put your subject close to it, turn all the rest of the lights off in your room, and turn your subject until the lighting does something really flattering with their facial features. Window light is free, flattering, and it has always been there. Don't forget, the Easy Lighting Guide is linked below. 5 easy lighting setups in plain English. Go grab it, and if you made it this far, drop me a comment and tell me what room in your house has the best lighting. Bonus points if it's someplace weird. And I'll see you next time.